Wish you a wonderful day. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to our institution of Global Professionals free webinar. My dear lovely audience, thank you for joining with us and please stay with us till the end. Dear audience, today I'm your host Nasreen from Bangladesh for this morning session. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to be associated with IGP as a global member. I feel honored and privileged to host this webinar. It's my delight to welcome you all to our Institution of Global Professionals free webinar. So, dear audience, thank you again for joining with us in this marvelous moment. And it's my humble request to everyone, please share this in your timeline and Facebook groups also. You can also share this in LinkedIn, Twitter, and with your friends, family, person. And you can also tag, share, and mention them in our comment box. So I'm sure you all have many takeaways and payoffs from this webinar. So each time you can give a thumbs up to our program and comment in our webinar. So don't forget to give it likes in our Facebook official page and subscribe to our YouTube channel. So, dear audience, let's learn together and grow together because we believe that power is sharing by knowledge, not holding it. So, once again, I'm Nasrin, member in IGP. Welcome you all to our webinar. So, dear audience, we knew that every day we have new participants who join with us from different places and time zones. So let me give a little concept about IGP. Institution of Global Professionals serves student and community resources, providing holistic social work and education for create a professional generation. IGP is a leading online skill development institute with thousands of learners worldwide. We make it get and able to use for every knowledge seeker to originate personality, more ambitious, make confident to face any circumstance and develop skills. We are entrusted with international recognition. Institution of Global Professionals is an educational institution provides social work. So we believe that it's not effective to increase one's skills just by acquiring formal education. So we provide effective training and consultation to generate proficient generation all over the world. We organize our webinar, training offline, online courses, etc. for best and train speakers, coaches from all over the world to create a best learning platform for all of you. And our ambition is to empower people and we have already successfully completed our 571 webinar and today I'm presenting 572 number webinar and the topic is modern trends in education different approaches to learning. So dear audience, let's start our program with IGP's mantra that is feed your skills. So right now I can see so many active participants already joined with us and commenting in our comments. So everyone, please don't forget to tag, share and mention your friends in our comments. And today we have our honorable speaker from Philippines. So let's welcome our speaker. Welcome, sir. Arnold Ryan Mercado. How are you, sir?
Thank you, ma'am. I'm good and I'm ready to deliver my talk regarding the modern trends in education, different approaches to learning.
Thank you, sir. And you can start it right now.
Okay, thank you. All right. So, everyone, welcome to our topic for today, modern trends in education, different approaches to learning. So, before anything else, we all know that trend for today is really changing. According to Google defines trend as a general direction in which something is developing and changing. We can all agree that the education space is continuously upgrading itself to evolve to present day necessities. The educational methods handed over to us years ago have a distinct and stark difference to the pedagogical tools and used today. With advancement in technology, every industry is adapting to the new trends, and the education sector is no exemption with this. So, my dear participants and listeners, educational trends adapted by the institutions vary from each other depending on the trend that is most suitable for implementation and that which resonates with their objective. How a particular trend translates and augments a student's life is of a paramount importance, choosing to adopt a particular trend. Some of the trends that are particularly noticeable in educational institutions throughout the world, including the use of technology in the classroom, which includes but is not limited to gamification and the use of educational apps. Inquiry-based education focus on performing arts as a supplement to a regular academic structure, inclusive education, educational, and some project tours, and industry-based interface for some older students via internships and so on. So, my dear participants, my dear listeners, I'm going to present this as with some basic introduction. We all know that education sprouts in many forms. Our views of what it should look like and how it should materialize depends on our value of it and our experience with it. So here's a question. What if a class consisted of words that led to information that whirled into blended realms of creativity set up just for students, created by the students? Remember, my dear participants, the students then dictated what they've learned instead of reluctantly ingesting information and standards imposed upon them that exists here and now, in every nook and cranny, around every corner, inside every well engineered lesson. Students might just learn what they want to learn and actually find success while improving the world around them. Now, let's take a tour on this presentation. Remember that students then dictated what they've learned instead of reluctantly ingesting information standards imposed upon them. Now, let me present the different views of education that somehow find a similar note. Education is changing and there may certain things every classroom should have. Okay, now let's start this presentation. First trend is what we call the social networking. So what is social networking? So when we say social networking is the practice of using a dedicated platform, online platform, to maintain contact, interact, and collaborate with like-minded individuals, peers, friends, and families. It's very popular today since social network sites such as Facebook, Yelp, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Those are some used by the individuals today to maintain social connections, stay informed and access, as well as to share a wealth of information. These sites also enable marketers to reach their target audiences. So, how does social networking work? So, it's having connection in both the real and the digital world. Today, this term is mainly used to reference online social communications. The internet has made it possible for people to find and connect with others who they may never have met otherwise. Therefore, online social networking is dependent on technology and internet connectivity. And some users can access social networking sites using their PCs, tablets, and smartphones. Most social networking sites run on a back and searchable databases that use advanced programming languages such as the Python to organize, to store, and retrieve data in an easy to understand format. So what are the different types of social networking? First, we have the professional connections. Of course, we teachers, we educators, we are geared toward professionals. These social networking sites may include a general forum where professionals can connect with coworkers or offer an exclusive platform based on specific occupations or interest levels. Like for example, the social network of LinkedIn and Twitter are the most common examples. We also have the type of social networking, what we call informational. This type of social networking includes communities of people who are looking for answers to their everyday problems, fostering a sense of helping others. It also serves the members to provide answers to the questions, conduct discussions to some forums, or teach others how to perform various tasks and projects. Therefore, it is very popular. Some examples are including the Reddit, the Quora, and do-it-yourself.com community forums. Now, we have another example, which is educational. So, this must be focused on this presentation because educational social networks promote remote learning, enabling students and teachers to collaborate on school projects, conduct researches, and interact through different blogs, different forums. One best example is the Google Classroom, the LinkedIn Learning site, and the ePulse are the popular examples. And one best example that I can offer and mention in this presentation is the Pinterest, wherein it's a bookmarking site enable the users to share their photos and organize the links to a variety of online resources and websites. Similar to a digital scrapbook, Pinterest enables the users to save specific pins to pinboards and making it easier for them to search for specific topics and share with their followers. Now let's proceed with another trend, the competency-based learning. So when we say competency-based learning, this refers to system of instructions, assessments, grading, and academic reporting that are based on students demonstrating that they have learned the knowledge and skills they are expected to learn as they progress through their education. Here, in our country in public schools, competency-based systems use state learning standards to determine academic expectations and define competency or the proficiency in a given course or given subject area, or a grade level. Although other set of standards may also be used, including standards developed by the districts or the schools or by subject area organizers. The general goal of competency-based learning is to ensure that the students are requiring the knowledge and the skills that are deemed to be essential to success in school, higher education, careers, and adult life. If students fail to meet expected learning standards, they typically receive additional instruction, practice time, and academic support to help them achieve competency or meet the expected standards. In practice, my dear participants, competency-based learning can take a wide variety of forms, from state to state or school to school. There is no single model or university use approach. While schools often create their own competency-based system, they may also use systems, models, or strategies created by the state education agencies or their department or outside educational organizations. Competency-based learning is more widely used at the elementary level or the primary level. Although more middle schools and high schools are adopting this approach, as with any educational strategy, some competency-based systems may be better designed or more effective than others. Actually, recently, the term competency-based learning or competency-based education have become more widely used by the online schools or some um, companies selling online learning programs. Also, the colleges and the universities, particularly those offering online degree programs. It should be noted that competency-based learning is a typically designed and implemented in K-12 public schools, can differ significantly from the forms of competency-based learning being offered and promoted by the online schools and post-secondary degree programs. At the college level, for example, competency-based learning may entail prospective adult students receiving academic credit for knowledge and skills they acquire in their former careers. As an approach that can reduce tuition fees or tuition costs and accelerate their progress towards earning a degree. It should also be noted that many online schools and educational programs, both the K-12 and higher educational levels, have also become the object of, of criticism and debate. Many for-profit virtual schools and online degree programs, for example, have been accused of offering low-quality education experience. So here's the downside of competency-based learning. But again, this kind of trend is in the process of reforming, wherein generally seen as an alternative to more traditional educational approaches, in which students may or may not acquire proficiency in a given course or academic subject before they earn course credit in order to get promoted to the next grade level or graduate. For example, high school students typically earn academic credits by passing a course, but passing grade may be an A or maybe D, suggesting that the awarded credit is based on a spectrum of learning expectations. With some students learning more and other learning less, rather than on the same consistent standards being applied to all students equally. And since grades may be calculated differently from school or teacher to teacher, and they may be based on divergent learning expectations, it may be possible for students to pass their courses, earn and require number of credits, and receive a diploma without acquiring important knowledge and skills. In extreme cases, students may be awarded a high school diploma but still be unable to read, write, or do math at basic level. Therefore, a competency-based diploma would be a diploma awarded to students only after they have met expected learning standards. So see, my dear participants, the main goal is to meet the competency, achieve the goals and the objectives until they can get what they want, especially the diploma or the transcript of records. Now let's proceed with the next trend. We have the underground education. So, education is revolutionary, but does not aim to teach or incite external revolution. Rather, it aims to nudge minds awake. Underground education begins the moment you are something that needs to be taught, and you teach it regardless of time allotted. Teachers engage in this daily. It is not a specific plan or curriculum. It is simply teaching an art that has been and is being rendered obsolete through excessive and oppressive testing procedures. Underground procedures, underground education begins with you, the teacher, examining the current curriculum as is and critically supplementing it with what you know to be educational best practice. In early elementary, teachers, they often don't have time to help their learners master the skills necessary for a reading. So take the time, make sure that they really learn to read. You know how to assess their literacy. Help them develop every single tool that they need to engage in reading. Their worlds and the world. Talk to them, let them talk. Spend time questioning and exploring. Build motor skills and number sense. If a concept is tough to grasp and you must move forward, don't neglect to go back even if it's just for that one child. So that's the feature of underground education. Another is teach. You know how to do it. No evaluation, no third party or administrative office can tell you to neglect a child in the name of an assessment. Underground teaching is about providing learners with what they need. It's about exploring curiosity. It involves teaching and stimulating every child and mind as though they belong in gifted classes. Early elementary teachers build a firm foundation with this. So it will be a great help in terms of foundation of our learners. In upper elementary teachers, like the fourth grade, the transition from learning to read to reading to learn. And beyond that, an even greater emphasis on testing. Learners arrive lacking basic skills for numerous reasons. Teachers don't have time to go back and teach K to 4 or the fourth level. You don't, but you must. This is a thumb critical slump. The focus, as you know, must center around enabling the learners to glean information from text, the math, the reading, social studies, science, the physical world, the cultural context, and many more. So, what can be done? Help them. The learners start connecting information. Give them problems to solve. Perhaps it's a problem in their own world, something they can arrive in dialogue. Help them or watch them work out through dialogues. Underground education seeks to empower and awaken. It will not allow a learner to pass through a system without finding their value. Underground education is not dictated by the tests or by the state agenda. Rather, it is dictated by the needs of the learners. So again, my my audience, underground education focus with the needs of our learners. Here, the educator is the professional. Reform is in our hands, not the hands of the distant, but a top-down model cannot work in the underground education. It's for the people. It's by the people. It doesn't celebrate labels, failures, or separation by assessment or different measurements. It seeks to teach and help them learn. Most importantly, teachers who bother to teach in the underground must be connected. We must band together in this struggle. We must collaborate and innovate. We must share our methods and our aims. We, together, can revolutionize education. We are not reformers or policymakers, but we are teachers. We make decisions, we implement them, we stand together. So underground education is really something different from other trends. Let's proceed with the next trend. We have the self-directed learning. So when we say self-directed learning, is a learning method whereby the students takes initiative for learning. This includes activities such as selecting, managing, and assessing their own learning activities. Teachers provide the advice, the direction, and the resources to support the students while peers or the students provide collaboration. Students walking up steps. In this kind of trend, the self-directed learning, it can be challenging, even for the brightest and most motivated students. As a means of better understanding the process involved in this mode of study, this teaching tip or this teaching trend outlines key components of the four key stages to independent learning. And it is known as the self-directed learning. Being ready to learn, setting learning goals, engaging in the learning process, and evaluating the learning. So the first step in the self-directed learning is what we call assess readiness to learn. Students need various skills and attitudes towards learning for successful independent study. This step involves students conducting a self-evaluation of their current situation, study habits, family situation, and many more. For a detailed learning skill assessment tool, we can use readiness to learn teaching tip. It's a sign of readiness for self-directed learning include being autonomous, organized, self-disciplined, and able to communicate effectively and able to accept constructive feedback and engage in self-evaluation and self-reflection. The step two in self-directed learning is the communication of learning goals or setting the learning goals. Communication of learning goals between a student and the teacher, the educator, is critical. We have developed a set of questions for students to consider as they map out their learning goals, or what we call sometimes as the unit planning decision guide. Also, critical in developing a clear understanding of learning goals between students and instructors are learning contracts. And therefore, learning contracts must include the following. First is the goal of the unit of the study. Second is the structure and the sequence of activities. Third, timeline for completion of activities. Another is the details about the resource material for each goal, details about grading procedures, the feedbacks and evaluation as each goal is completed, meeting plan with the advising instructor or teacher or the advisor, agreement of unit policies, such as policies on late assignments. Once created, contracts should be assessed by the advising faculty member and question about feasibility should be raised. For example, what could go wrong? Is there any too much or too little work? Is the timeline evaluated reasonable? So again, we have another step. Step three, engage in the learning process. Students need to understand themselves as learners in order to understand their needs as self-directed learning students. Referring to students to our resource on learning preferences may be helpful. Students should also consider the following questions. For example, what are my needs? Instructional methods? Who was my favorite teacher? Then why? What did they do that was different from other teachers? Students should reflect on these questions throughout their program and substitute teachers with advertising instructor. Students also need to understand the approach to studying. There's a deep approach to studying involves transformation and is ideal for self-directed learning. This approach is about understanding ideas for yourself, applying knowledge to new situations, and using novel examples in a concept or a learning more than is required for unit completion. Next is the step 4, evaluate learning. For students to be successful in self-directed learning, they must be enabled to engage in self-reflection and self-evaluation of their learning goals and progress in a unit of study. To support this self-evaluation process, they should first regularly consult with the advisor or the teacher, seek feedback, and last one is engage in reflection of their achievements, which involves how do I know I've learned? Am I flexible in adapting and applying the knowledge? Do I have confidence in explaining the material? When do I know I've learned enough? When is that for self-reflection and when it's time for consultation with the advising faculty members? So, what's the responsibility of those steps, no? For those four steps. Successfully independent study requires a certain responsibility or roles for both students and the educators. So let me present to you the list of more important rules. It is useful for both teachers and educators and of course to our learners or our students. So first is having the student role, self-assess your readiness to learn. Next, define your learning goals and develop a learning contract. Third, monitor your learning process. Another, take initiative for all stages of the learning process. It can be self-motivated. Another, reevaluate and alter goals as required during your unit of study. And another is consult with your advisors. Another, advising some teachers' roles. Build a cooperative learning environment. Another is help to motivate and directly give the learning experience to our students or learners. Facilitate students' initiatives for learning. Then another, be available for consultations as appropriate during the learning process. And last one, serve as an advisor rather than a formal instructor. So that's how a self-directed learning should be done. This is a sample of our um, map of self-directed learning framework. So as you see, there is a part of student's role wherein self-assess your readiness to learn, define your goals and develop a learning contract, monitor your learning process, take initiative for all stages of the learning process, or be self-motivated, then reevaluate and alter goals as required during your unit of the study or subject, then consult with your advisors or teacher advisors as required. Another is the advertised instructor role. Build a cooperative learning environment. Help to motivate and direct the students' learning experience. Facilitate students' initiatives for learning. Be available for consultations as appropriate during the learning process. And as a teacher, we serve as an advisor rather than a formal instructor. So we have here a connected idea with self-directed learning network or framework, sorry, is what we call the inside out school. So as a follow-up of the 9 characteristics I said earlier, we have developed an updated framework, the inside out learning model. The goal of the model is simple enough, not pure academic proficiency, but instead authentic self-knowledge, diverse local and global interdependence, and adaptive critical thinking and adaptive media literacy. The design of this model emphasizes the role of the play, diverse digital and physical media, and a design interdependence between community and schools. Therefore, we will have the micro effect, which is increased intellectual intimacy, while the macro effect is healthier communities and citizenships that extends beyond mere participation. So now these are the 9 domains of the inside out learning model. First is the number one, 5 learning actuators. So here there are some project-based learners, directed and non-directed plays, video games and learning simulations, connected mentoring, academic phase or academic practice to changing habits. Another is the fertilize innovation and the design. So acknowledge limits and sales, reflect on interdependence, honor society, create legacy, support systems, level and divergent thinking, rewards increment, and requires versatility in the face of challenge. Another is what we call the transparency between communities, learners, and goals. learning standards, outcomes, project rubrics, personal criteria, or publish replace grades. So another is what we call the self-initiated transfer, applying old thinking constantly changing and unfamiliar circumstances as a constant matter of practice. Therefore, constant practice of prioritize big ideas in increasing complexity with learners. Some examples are the following: project-based learning, blended learning, and place-based education. We also have the another trend, the another part. We have here the accountability and the changing roles. Learners are knowledge makers. Teachers are the experts of assessment and resources. Classrooms are think tanks, communities not just audience, but vested applicants. Families as designers, curators, and content resources. Another is the climate of assessment. There is a constant minor assessment replace exams. Data streams inform progress and suggest pathways. Academic standards prioritize and anchoring the products, simulation performance, self-knowledge delegate, and to a new role of refinement of thought. Another, the thought and abstraction. So therefore, in this model, struggles and abstractions are expected outcomes of increasing complexity and real-world uncertainty. So therefore, this uncertainty is honored, and complexity and cognitive patience are constantly modeled and revered. Abstraction honors is not just an art or philosophy and other humanities, but the uncertainty, incomplete and subjective nature of knowledge. Last one is the expanding literacies. Here, we analyze, we evaluate, and synthesize credible information. There is a critical survey of the interdependence of media and thought, consumption of constantly evolving media forms. There is a media design for authentic purposes. There is also self-monitored sources of digital and non-digital. And last one is the artistic and useful content creation patterns. In self-directed learning, the main role is to improve the ability of individuals to be autonomous in their pursuit of knowledge. That is to create lifelong learners capable of adapting to change. It's either societal or professional and many more. Also, self-directed learning provides a platform for transformational leading experiences. And the main objective is to facilitate the development of a learner capable of acting as an agent of change. Why are these goals necessary? Why is self-directed learning necessary? Again, the future of work is increasingly volatile, uncertain, and complex and ambiguous. Based on a feedback from employers, some university graduates who have been educated in traditional passive learning environments are not prepared with new work. Therefore, self-directed learning is also integrated for some reasons. More importantly, the reality that skills and knowledge are no longer as durable as they once were. According to Marquardt, successful organizations is one that learns powerfully and collectively and continually transforming itself to better collect, manage, and use knowledge. Now, what's the characteristic and attributes of successful self-directed learners? When you are a product of self-directed learning, you are more persistent than other types of students. You are empowered by the ability to make decisions and chart their own course on their own learning journey. You are able to take the initiative. You're able to manage their time. They can pace themselves, avoiding the kinds of procrastination and cramming behaviors. You can reflect, capable of examining your own performance relative to the achievement of their learning objectives. One more. It's more likely than passive learners to seek out what they are struggling and willing and able to accept responsibility for the quality and content of the work. Many students, both undergraduate and graduate, come to your classrooms. But virtual and brick and mortar, without these characteristics, leading students on self-directed learning pathways is somewhere between difficult and impossible. So in our country, Philippines, we cannot say that self-directed learning is also a method, but it's a new trend of education. Now, as you see, creating the environment for self-directed learning is not a one and done task. It is continual throughout the learning process. It is also important to encourage and support learners throughout the knowledge acquisition process. What you're doing when you engage with students in this manner is not only helping your students but recognizing their own growing knowledge, but the helping knowledge, helping them to realize the change in their thought processes and strategies. One final note. Remember, my dear participants, my dear viewers, it is absolutely critical that self-directed learners have a variety of options to prove to both of us, to all of us, and to make themselves that they have achieved their learning objectives. Of course, the roles of the students play a different role in structured. In self-directed learning, they do traditional passive learning lecture-based classes. In self-directed learning environments, students must accept new roles and responsibilities. Self-assessment of learning readiness, developing observable, measurable learning objectives, engagement with the learning process, monitoring your process toward established goals. Take and maintain the initiative throughout the learning process. And of course, communicate with your teacher, instructors, and friends and peers or classmates as necessary to progress toward your goals. Now let's proceed with the next part. Okay, remember that you should begin with self-knowledge. There are many questions here. For example, what's worth understanding? What problems or opportunities are within my reach? What important problems and solutions have others before me created? What legacies am I part of? And what does that suggest that I understand? Self-assessments. Students should, in an organized and structured manner, assess their readiness to learn, prior knowledge, and progress in achieving their goals. Some of the tools for this kind of assessment can include surveys, formative quizzes, knowledge checks, gamified decision making, and creation of artifacts. Of course, we in self-directed learning framework should be analyze the context. For example, what is the modern and historical context of this topic or this issue? What do I need to understand about this issue to grasp its significance and scale? How do the pathos, the ethos, the logos factor? What patterns are apparent? What do experts and non-experts know, believe they know about it? Number three is activate existing knowledge. So with this, remember that in activating existing knowledge, roughly brainstorm what you already know. Then make some true or false statements, give examples and non-examples, or otherwise organize your existing knowledge in some useful or elegant way. Another, there should be a concept map. There should be a concept map to put your knowledge in a given context. Interact with some relevant media resources and networks. And of course, analyze for both the obvious and the nuance, the explicit and implicit. Another, design learning pathway. In design learning pathway, how can I learn what I need to know? That's a good question. Next, of what I need to know, what can I gain quickly, and what will require more in-depth study? What technology resources can offer me access to relevant content, the resources, and communities? Last one, what learning forms or models makes the most sense for me to use? So again, this is how we design learning pathway. Another is to clarify the knowledge. Of course, this is really important phase. You need to analyze need for creativity, innovation, and information. You form new questions based on learning. You establish what is or isn't within your present reach of understanding. You revise future learning pathway based on your learning experiences or interaction with community members, seniors, the mentors. And of course, in self-directed learning, there should be applying standards or applying understanding. In applying understanding, what are my standards for quality? What scale does it make the most sense for me to work and study? What change in myself should I expect as a result of my work and study? What related actions do the citizenship of which I am part suggest or demand? Okay, now let's proceed with another trend. So we're done with self-directed learning framework. We have the lesson study. Actually, lesson study originated in Japan. So lesson study is a Japanese model, teacher-led research, in which a triad of teachers work together to target an identified area for development in their students' learning. So see, using this kind of evidences, participants collaboratively research, they plan, they observe a series of lessons, using ongoing discussion, reflection, and expert input to track and redefine their interventions. This Japanese lesson study model has been advocated in the UK, in the United Kingdom, for some time, both by the National College for Teaching and Leadership, and lesson study is a collaborative professional development approach focused on student learning. The lesson study cycle is comprised of 4 stages or so. Yes. So what you see on my slide is 4 stages. First is study and plan. The second one is teach, observe, and debrief. Third is revise and reteach. And last one, reflect and report. So when we say study and plan, here's the number one, study and plan. Um, it identifies the goals for students, investigates the curricula, and examines research on classroom practice and student learning. When we say teach, observe, and debrief, one team member teaches the lesson developed by the team, while the team members observe and record evidence of student lacking. Next, team members share observation data or discuss evidences of student learning and explore whether students achieve goals. Next part of the lesson study is the revise and reteach. So therefore, these terms is during observations, findings to revise the lesson for improved effectiveness. A team member reteaches the lesson while the other team members observe and collect evidences of the student learning. Of course, the last part is reflect and report. The team reflects on the result of the cycle and documents its learning in a report. The team also has plan. It will how plan to share and disseminate its new professional knowledge with peers and other interested stakeholders. Now let's proceed with new trend, which is constructive struggling. So again, this is from Japan, but constructive struggling can happen when a skillful teacher gives students engaging yet challenging problems. Constructive struggling can take place when a teacher decides that one demanding, possibly time-consuming problem will likely provide more learning rather than or more learning value than several shorter but more obvious problems. As a student engaged in constructive struggling, they construct deep personal understanding on the mathematical ideas that are embedded in the problem. They also build a proficiency in mathematical practices, including the capacity for critical thinking, the ability to communicate about the mathematical thinking, and the willingness to persevere in solving complex problems. Next, we have the schooling clouds. So we are very familiar with schooling clouds. According to the research made by Sugata Mitra, who won the TED Prize of $1 million in 2013, according to him, his wish is to help design the future of learning by supporting children all over the world to tap into their innate sense of wonder. Help, help him to build the school in the cloud, a learning laboratory in India. Therefore, the schooling clouds originated in India, where children can embark on intellectual adventures by engaging and connecting with information and mentoring online. And also, according to Sugata Mitra, he invite everyone, wherever you are, to create your own miniature child-driven learning environment and of course, share their own discoveries. The main plan for the School in the Clouds is a modern schooling looks the teacher in front of class, the students in orderly desks, the system developed under the um, British Empire that was 300 years ago. That's the traditional. But with the rise of the internet, memorization of facts is not as important. For the jobs of the future, students need to learn how to think critically. That is the paradigm shift of Sugata Mitra. He hopes to usher with the school in the clouds. In addition to opening physical learning laboratories of varying sizes, Sugata Mitra created the Granny Cloud, a global network of retired teachers who support kids through an online school in the cloud platform. His main goal is to share the self-organized learning environment method with parents, teachers, and after-school programs and communities worldwide and transform the way the kids learn. In the current status of the school in the clouds, there's a lot of happened since Sugata Mitra shared his wish on TED 2013. In 2013, the first school in the cloud learning lab located inside a high school in Killingworth, England. All right, that's the first part, the first established cloud school. They opened its doors to students. Since then, there are 6 more learning laboratories or labs have been built. 1 more in the UK and 5 across India. So Mitra has launched this school in the cloud platform, which ensures that everyone, anyone, anywhere can experiment with self-organized learning. In 2016, more than 16,000 sessions have taken place globally. So see, including the Pakistan, the Colombia, the Greece, these are some of the countries who are now performing the school in the clouds. School in the cloud will be subject for documentary by the director Jerry Rothwell, um, TED Prize filmmaker, and it will be soon, of course, viewed by everyone. Now let's proceed with another trend. Problem-based learning. Problem-based learning is already existing, but I will just want to go deeper with some important matters with problem-based learning. Problem-based learning, or what we call the PBL, is a student-centered approach in which students learn about a subject by working in groups to solve an open-ended problem. This problem is what drives the motivation and the learning. Okay, so in problem-based learning, it works in teams, manage problems, and hold leadership roles. They develop their oral and written communication. They have self-awareness and evaluation of group processes. They work independently. They have some critical thinking and analysis. They explain concepts with self-directed learning. Of course, they apply courses content to real-world examples. Researching and information literacy is really um, observable in problem-based learning. And of course, problem solving across discipline. So rather than teaching relevant material and subsequently having students apply the knowledge to solve problems, the problems is presented first when we use PBL, or the problem-based learning. Assignments can be short or they can be more involved and take a whole semester. But PBL is often group-oriented, beneficial to set aside classroom time to prepare students to work in groups and allow them to engage in their PBL project. Of course, students in this trend must be examine and define the problem, explore what they already know about underlying issues, determine what they need to learn and where they can acquire the information and tools necessary to solve the problem, evaluate possible ways to solve the problem, and of course, solve the problem, and report the findings, and getting started with problem-based learning pa rin. Articulate the learning outcomes of the project. Of course, when they are done with this problem, it will be put into reality. Now let's proceed with another trend. Learning with technologies. Of course, in learning with technologies, we all know that technology is transforming education, changing how, when, and where students learn, and empowering them at various stage of their journey. On the path of the on the path of personalizing learning, technology empowers students by giving them ownership of how they learn, making education relevant to their digital lives and preparing them for their futures. With technology and access to resources beyond classroom walls, students are inspired to become problem solvers, critical thinkers, collaborators, and of course, creators, where technology has been successfully integrated into classroom. Students develop a lifelong love of learning. On the part of educators are always striving to personalize learning for students. Technology can help us reach new levels with access to real-time student data, longitudinal information, content, apps, and more. Technology can help the educators to create blended learning environments and leverage digital tools for formative and summative assessments, bringing new models for learning and teaching to classrooms. This kind of technology in education is very suited to our learners, especially in the STEAM strand or STEM strand, because we are making them, gaining them skills, and honing them problem solving and critical thinking skills for the 21st century. And of course, learning by doing is really present in this kind of trend. In terms of school systems, of course, there are some issues, of course, in terms of choosing devices and technology models. All right, now let's proceed with the next trend. Next trend, we have the constructivist learning. In constructivist learning, of course, it supports the idea of constructivism, the theory that says learners construct knowledge rather than just passively take the information. As people experience the world and reflect upon those experiences, they build their own representations and incorporate new information into their pre-existing knowledge. Of course, constructivist teaching is based on the belief that learning happens as learners are actively involved in a process of meaning and knowledge construction as opposed to passively receiving information. Learners are the makers of meaning and knowledge. Therefore, constructivist teaching fosters critical thinking and creates motivated and independent learners. Now let's proceed with the next trend. We have international objectives. So what is international objectives? From the word international, of course, society and the professional world continue to evolve and change with the growth of technology and the beginning of the um, modernization. This turn has a tremendous impact on the educational sphere, leading to a number of growing trends in the world of education. For educators to properly engage their students, they must retain or remain ab- abreast of these latest changes and key factors that affect learning in the classroom. Their understanding of these trends can help them create more effective learning environments. As teachers, we can prepare ourselves to implement this latest education development. Now, let me give five most important trends in relation with international objectives. First is the technological trends in teaching and learning. The growth of technological capabilities means that a variety of media and learning support tools now exist to help students receive and acquire a high quality education through the internet. Technology, for example, may not encourage students to learn soft skills, but they may not have the built-in opportunities to engage with their fellow students. Of course, another is soft skills training, a major trend in higher education. According to my source, the Future of Jobs report, some of the most important skills in the workplaces includes critical thinking, problem solving, people management, and creativity. Some employers want to see emerging professionals who understand how to make hard decisions and showcase their leadership abilities. Another trend is the student trend, decreasing attention spans. Of course, this drop has largely been blamed to the nature of the technology and the constant stimulation it offers to all. So, therefore, this kind of trend is really needed to be focused, especially with some excellent visuals and dialogues. Then another is the facilitating learning versus teaching. As technology has grown, it has also changed how teachers relate their students and to their classrooms. With a wealthy information, of course, students today have the tools they need to uncover a tremendous amount of facts and knowledge independently. In this kind of environment, many students value less of a top-down delivery method. Instead, teachers now function more in facilitative role. We only act as facilitators now. Their job has slowly evolved into a position where they help students understand how to learn, to love learning, and how to uncover and understand the information they find. And last trend here is the lifelong learning trend. Of course, the schools that learn how to master these skills have the chance to remain connected with their careers. They can offer continual learning courses that will keep their former students engaged with the new development in the fields and ensure that they keep coming back to the school for the support and education they need. Now let's proceed to the next trend. We have the asynchronous learning hubs. Of course, the asynchronous learning hubs, we all know that because of the pandemic COVID-19, asynchronous learning has been established. Asynchronous learning is a learning strategy that does not require real-time interaction. Instead, real-time lessons. Students interact with the course content through learning modules, discussion boards, or pre-recorded videos. Students can engage with the material at their own pace, which can be ideal for classes that are fully conducted virtually. The main advantage to this asynchronous learning is it's very flexible, wherein the students are unable to be in the classroom in person. Their schedules may all be different due to their unique home lives. Asynchronous learning can mitigate the difficulty of scheduling in person by lessons by promoting independent learning instead. Of course, asynchronous learning is very helpful to many students because of its flexibility. But there are some challenges, of course. Of course, one is the the effect of no face-to-face communication, which can make your students feel less connected. Then I will give some 5 tips to help you get the most from asynchronous learning. First, include outlets for students' interaction. Another is help them to set a routine. Then show students how to pace themselves in an asynchronous setting or the way they answer the content of the courses. Then offer your students personalized feedbacks. And of course, provide alternatives to video instruction when possible. It will help them a lot to understand what's the topic all about. Now, let's proceed with the next trend. We have the competency-based education. The competency-based education or CBE is an approach allows students to advance based on their ability to master a skill or competency at their own pace, regardless of environment. This method is tailored to meet different learning abilities that can lead to be more efficient student outcomes. Competency-based education, of course, is taking root in schools and districts across different countries. The concept behind competency-based education is simple. Learning is best measured by students demonstrating mastery of their learning, rather than the number of hours spent in a classroom. Now let's proceed to the next trend. We have the adaptive learning platforms. In adaptive learning platforms, there's a lot of adaptive learning platforms. But of course, I'll give the one example, the IXL. In terms of IXL, it's one of the best adaptive learning platforms that can be used by our learners. Adaptive learning is a strategy that employs algorithms and artificial intelligence to organize the learner engagement and deliver personalized resources and learning activities to meet each learner's individual needs. Using the adaptive learning platforms, it will make ensure continuous learning and skills improvement for the workforce and of course to our learners. There are many adaptive learning platforms. Like for example, the EdUp, Adaptemy, Newton, Cogbooks, Realize It, Smart Sparrow, Pearson Interactive Laboratories, but we'll focus with IXL. There are some, because IXL is a personalized learning platform used by 400,000 teachers worldwide. It combines some curriculum wherein it's very unique. And IXL, there are some ways to use with the students. Set up your roster, of course. Then, find skills to work on. Make IXL a habit, of course. And use smart scores, tips, and tricks. Then, let's have some extra motivation for our learners to have some, of course, rewards and certificates. And here's the best way. Another best way is go mobile, of course, and gamify it. We all know that through games, learners will be learning will be fun. All right. Now, next trend. Okay, last one is let students self-direct their own learning. Another trend is the degree qualification. In terms of degree qualification, we have here the Lumina Foundation, wherein this is one example of degree qualification because educational qualifications refers to the official confirmation, your certificate, diploma, or degree, certifying the successful completion of an education program or a stage or a program. Successful completion of an education program refers to the achievement of specified learning objectives, typically validated through the assessment of acquired knowledge, skills, and competencies. We also have the place-based learning. So place-based learning engage students in their community, including their physical environment, local culture, history, or the people. With place-based learning, students get to see the results of their work in their community. They build communication and inquiry skills, learn how to interact with any environment, and gain a better understanding of themselves, as well as their place in the world. Next trend, we have the disrupting innovation. So in terms of disrupting innovation, in education, it obliterates the classroom. It makes the classroom be something else, entirely a physically gathering space in preparation for something else. Education and disruption share many connections. One relationship is the cause and effect. Education should cause disruption of existing social paradigms. For example, and disruption of existing social paradigms should both need and create opportunity for new forms of education. Next trend, open innovation. Of course, this is really, really trending for today. We all know that open innovation as a concept and a process is an important new tool for education, underlining the knowledge interaction and dissemination between education, research, and industries. By the open innovation was started in the early 2000s, but up to now, it's already existing. Next, the focus on teacher quality. So this is another trend in education wherein the challenge and the charge. Of course, the teachers should meet high standards by establishing professional standards boards in every state or every country and insisting on accreditation for all schools of education and closing inadequate ones and requiring all teachers be licensed based on demonstrated performance. New models of teacher education are needed in developing countries to enhance their competencies. Let's proceed with the next trend, the Finnish education. This is very trending as of now because Finland is leading the way because of their common sense practices and a holistic teaching environment that strives for quality over excellence. Of course, these are the reasons why the Finland is leading in terms of their education, the Finnish education. No standardized testing. Another, accountability for the teachers is not required. Cooperation, not competition. Education should be an instrument balance of social inequality. Starting school at an older age, providing professional options, consistent instruction from the same teachers. There is a more relaxed atmosphere, less homework and outside work required. Next trend, the social support strategy. In social support strategy, it helps people to cope with traumatic experiences. Having effective social support has been shown to be one of the most significant correlates of well-being and has been long believed to possibly impact with health and, of course, against distress. Next, we have the trend of change agents. Of course, there are many ways to change agents, to become agents of change in education. And of course, um, when we are making some innovations, don't try to copy it. Be inspired by the example of innovations, scale up, and use your own personal and professional strength to make your changes in your own school setting. Of course, we need to elevate the teachers. Next, next trend is common core change. In common core change, it was established in 2009. Common core learning standards were pushed by a group of governors and education, some experts, and of course, common core is not a curriculum. It's a detailed expectation for what content and skills students should master at each grade level. The goal is to dig deep into topics rather than scratch the surface of a broad range of content. Next trend, the startup education. The startup education, of course, there are many startup ideas. Like, for example, the VR or virtual reality lessons, the online courses. These are some of the startup educations, the blogging, the online coaching, tutoring, educational toys. These are the online library, the book mobile, and educational apps, educational games, and many more. These are only examples of startup education. We also have the mobile education. Of course, we all know that today our learners are in line with smartphones, with their mobile phones, and we teachers are very adaptive. We should adapt the changes and find some ways, innovate some new methods in order to put the education in the field of our mobile phones or our smartphones. Okay, another is the invisible structures. This is just only a theory, but the main focus is we learn more and do so invisibly when we separate structures of control that restrict freedom and self-dissemination from learning experiences. Another is the economic empowerment. Economic empowerment is giving students the ability to control their economic status through teaching them skills and economic value systems around the world, helps them become leaders and innovators, but also helps them find a basis for earning an income in a fluctuating economy. We have another trend here, the vocational training. Of course, the VET or the vocational education training, sometimes simply called as vocational training. Of course, the main focus is to learn some skills, like for example, automotive repair, plumbing. culinary arts, graphic design, fashion design, welding. Here in our country, TESDA, we have the agency of TESDA, which is concerned in developing our learners with this kind of skills. Another trend is the gamification. It was mentioned earlier that gamification is about transforming the classroom environment and regular activities into a game, of course. This makes the learning so fun for the learners. We have the catalytic role. The catalytic role is, of course, we teachers offering the catalytic teaching, where teachers cater for the individual needs of their students and adapting their approaches. And some characteristics identified by students of influential and significant teachers include a passion for teaching. Blended learning, of course, blended learning, uh, we all know that today are we make some innovations and integrating some technologies. The collective education, of course, the collective education is another trend in terms of education because this kind of trend, individuals takes the backseat when it comes to the idea of collectivist education. Students learn in groups and more importantly, with each other, better and more effectively than alone. Personalized education, in personalized education, refers to a diverse variety of educational programs, learning experiences, instructional approaches, and academic support strategies. Flexible learning, of course, in flexible learning, is a method of learning where students are given freedom in how, what, when, and where they learn. Flexible learning environments address how physical space is used. Flexible learning refers to the ability to customize one's space. Almost the same with personalized education. The flip learning, so in flip learning, there's a flip classroom. And in flip classroom, we are offering pedagogical approach from giving them the instructions first and before giving the subject matter. And of course, we have the classical education. The classical education, we all know that classical education is embracing the concept of educating the whole child and the notion that children are more than their standardized test scores. Classical schools are unique among schools' choice options for three reasons. The virtuous education, content-rich curriculum, and traditional classroom environment. Still, classical education is one of the trends as of now. And the pre-post-secondary education, wherein different countries all over the world are offering the pre-post-secondary education. Some courses are free and gathering some certificates of achievement for acquiring the skills and knowledge from a certain course. Another is the religion education or the religious education. So religious education exists because communities and cultures give it an importance beyond knowledge. Linking them together with the time and present, students learn and nature who their families and communities believe they are, as well as how to deal a changing world full of disappointment and violence. It's almost the same with the moral education, but it may define as helping children and young people to acquire a set of beliefs and values regarding what is right and wrong. The character education is almost connected with that, but in character education is the process of learning common attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors to become a responsible citizen. Then, of course, the readiness testing. Readiness testing is really important for some educations, institutions, for them to know the basic knowledge. Of course, the readiness in reading, readiness in counting, and in arithmetic, and sharing voices. Another trend. The main points that young people may include are, example, recognizing that teachers are integral to provide the desire for education system that meets the need of different learners, and the need for greater cultural representation and diversity in education. It started in New Zealand. Then, expeditionary learning. So this trend or the EL vision, when students and teachers are engaged in work that is challenging, adventurous, and meaningful, learning and achievement flourish. And to create classrooms where teachers can fulfill the highest aspirations and the students achieve more than they think possible. And contributors to the building of a better world. Self-organized learning environments. These are, according to Wikipedia, self-organized learning environment is a program designed to support self-directed education. So it's connected with self-directed learning. And another trend is the global view. According to Young Zoa defined the high-stakes testing creates more problems than providing answers, and it does not much success in the world today. Global education involves the study of problems, the issues, and the cultivation of cross-cultural understanding. The global perspective are important at every grade level, in every curricular subject area, and for all children and adults. So those are the trends that I can share to all of our audiences and to our participants here in our webinar. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for sharing your valuable presentation with our participants. And now we'll start our quiz competition. And after the quiz, we'll come back with you in our Q&A session. So, sir, please stay with us. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
So, my dear lovely audience, get ready for our next session, that is quiz competition. And don't forget to tag, share, and mention your friends in our comment box. So, get ready and enjoy this short video. Once again, welcome to our quiz competition session. So, please go to our comment box. You can see the joining link, or you can browse Chrome. Quickly go to www.slido.com and give the code that is quiz IGP. And please give your full name that you want to print in certificate. So, dear audience, please tag and mention your friends in our comments. So right now we have 22 participants who joined with us. Thank you all for joining. So today top 10 will be awarded with quiz competition certificates. Right now I have 26 participants who joined. Thank you again for joining, and please mention your friends in our comment box. And you can also share this in your timer so that your friends can see this. They can also participate here. We have 30 participants right now who joined. We have right now 35 participants. We are still waiting for our new participants. And after the quiz, we will go to our next session, that is QA session with our honorable speaker. So dear knowledge seeker, get ready with your question to ask our speaker. Okay, thank you Ma'am Giovanni for joining. Please join to our quiz competition session. You can see the joining link in the comment box, and also you can directly go to www.slido.com, and the code is quiz IT. So you can also participate in our this session. So we have right now 40 participants, 41 participants who joined. Okay, we will start our quiz competition within a minute. So get ready and Okay, let's start it. The first question is the most effective way of detecting inequity in a population would be to examine life expectancy data or assess overall population needs. So the right answer is option number one, that is examine life expectancy data, and only 41% of our participants answer correctly. Okay, in our leaderboard we have Sir Joseph and Placer first position, following Jamily Rivera, following Mary Julita Basson, following Alex Javier Alvarez, and Eugene Dorsey. So moving to our next question. An example of social justice in health is the provision of mental health care services in regional areas or provision of additional health services for the wealthy. So the correct answer is option number one, that is provision of mental health care services in regional areas, and 93% of our participants chose the correct answer. Again, we have Joseph and Blitzer in first position on leaderboard, following Maria Julita Basson, following Jamalin V. Rivera, following Alex Javier Alvarez, following and last we have Eugene Dorsey. So congratulations to all of you. Next question. National health priority areas in Australia include injury prevention and dental health or cancer, dementia, and asthma. The right answer is option number two. And the 48% of the participants chose the right answer. Right now we have Maria Julita Basan on first place in our leaderboard, following Jamelin V. Rivera, following Eugene Dorsey, following Gloria Carriers, and Camille M. Fresca. Okay, we are moving to our next question. Differences in personal health literacy are most influenced by persons. So, is this age and level of education or goal setting and assertiveness? Time is up. The right answer is option number one, age and level of education. And 74% of our participants answer correctly. In our leaderboard, again, Maria Julita Basan placed first, following Jamalin Rivera, following Ricky Dorsey, following Gloria and Camille. Okay, congratulations to all of you. We are moving to our next question, question number five. Analyzing trained data in a health inquiry enables researchers to identify the impacts of social determinants on health or predict future rates of occurrence and events. So you have to choose one option. Time's up. The correct answer is option number two, and only 2% of the participants answer correct. Okay, we have Maria Julita Basson is in first position in our leaderboard, following Jameline Rivera, following Eugene Dorsey. Then we have Gloria and Campbell. So there's no change in our leaderboard. We are moving to our next question. What are the modern job trends for medical transcriptionists? Outsourcing of jobs overseas or hiring workers with less experience? Right answer is option number one, and 88% of our participants chose the right answer. Once again, Maria Janita Basan is on first position in our leaderboard, following Jameline Rivera, following Eugene Dorsey, following Gloria Carriaza, and finally Camille and Fresca. So congratulations to our winners. Next question. Companies that invest in the education of their employees experience which of the following? An increase in worker productivity or an increase in employee turnover? Right answer is option number one, and 90% of majority of the participants answered correctly. Still, Maria Janita Basan leading the first position in our leaderboard, following Jamaline B. Rivera, following Gloria Carriaza. We have Annalisa Peter Villanova and Nancy Barotel. So, congratulations to our winners. Let's see the next question. Poorer infrastructure or health and education services in remote areas? Is this push or pull? Right answer is option number one, that is push, and 66% of our participants get the correct answer. In our leaderboard, we have Jamali Rivera on first position, following Annalita Peter Villanova, following Gloria Carriaza, then we have Nancy Baratil and Alex Javier Alvarez. Congratulations to all of you. Next question. If trends continue in the Middle East, what will be the most valuable commodity in 2040? Is this water or salt? The right answer is option number one, that is water. And 92% of our participants get the right answer. In our leaderboard, we have again Jamilin P. Rivera on first position, following Annalita Peter Villanova, following Gloria Carriaza. Then we have Nancy Barotil and Alex Javier Alvarez. So let's see our last question, that is question number two. What period in history did Western civilization make the transition from medieval to modern history? Is this the Renaissance or the Middle Ages? Right answer is option number one, and 73% of our participants get the right answer. Okay, we have our winner's name now in our leaderboard. Jamily Rivera placed on first position in our leaderboard, following Anelita Villanova placed second. We have Gloria Carriaza placed third. Nancy Barotti placed fourth. Maria Julita Basan placed fifth. And we have Michael G. Tesser placed sixth. We have Evelyn P. Perry placed 7. Ricky R. Colima placed 8. Ryan Lipasana placed 9 and Sherilyn Calizon Maguchi placed 10. So congratulations to our top 10 winners. Again, congratulations to our top 10 winners. Give a virtual clap for all winners. So, dear winners, you will get your certificates, quiz certificates from our Facebook official page after the program. So now, before going to next session, that is Q&A session, don't forget to tag, share, and mention your friends in our comment box. So get ready with your question to ask our honorable speaker. So after this short video, we will come back with our speaker. Once again, welcome to our Q&A session, my dear lovely audience. We have our speaker from Philippines, Sir Arnold. Welcome, sir.
Hello, everyone, and I'm ready to answer those questions.
So, dear audience, please give your question in our comment box and please address our speaker name. And we are waiting for your question. Okay, we have a first question from Sir Below Dias. What other technological advancement that can be used in the online learning approach?
All right, so that's a good question. What other technological advancement that can be used in the online learning approach? There are many technological advancements that can be integrate with our lessons, especially for the teachers, and we can give it to our learners. One example is the simple editing of some posters, digital posters, and editing of animations, and some programming skills like the Python. These are all technological advancements. As we all know, the world today is really searching for all graduates who are good in terms of computer engineering. And we, teachers, as an educator, we must integrate, and we can use the different technological advancements, the different learning apps, the educational apps that we have in order to establish a different skills, different kinds of skills, especially with technological skills, or what we call the soft skills for the learners in order to have a different kind of learning experiences because of technological advancement. And with this technological advancement, it gives also a good feedback to us, a teacher, as an educator in the field of education, because it helps also the teachers to create different kinds of innovations. And this innovation starts with critical thinking of teachers in using different kinds of technological advancements. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. So we have next question from Mary Juliet Torrebassen. How does self-directed learning be effective in teaching math in primary grade school students?
Okay, so that's a good question again. In terms of self-directed learning, as I mentioned earlier, that self-directed learning, we are giving them the right time or the privilege to have their own activities, their own performances, and with self-directed learning, it will be helpful for all learners to achieve a certain competency or a um, certain objective. Of course, the self-directed learning is characterized by some 21st century skills that we must integrate and teach to our learners. And with self-directed learning, it will be helpful to teach the mathematics since it's part of the 21st century skills that we want. Since it is progressive, students should constantly be generating original ideas from multiple sources. And with that, we teachers, we will act on that. We will filter those kinds of information, and we will act as a guide for our learners. We mentor them, and of course, let us help them self-create meanings and to have their creativity of learning. Once the learners are leading to wrong conceptions, we, math teachers, we will correct them, and of course, we will apply the right method in teaching a certain topic, because if we will let our learners, our students to perform on their own without our guidance, of course, it will lead them to misconceptions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We have our next question from Gelzan Darcy. Which learning approaches best suits in your country?
Okay. There are many learning approaches here in the Philippines, which are contributed by different educators, implemented by the Department of Education here in the Philippines, or the what we call DepEd. But there are weaknesses and advantages for those approaches. For me, as based on my experience during this COVID-19 pandemic, for the past 2 years, the best learning approach that I may suggest for all of us, for all the participants, is of course the online education. Because although we know that online education has the disadvantage of internet connectivity for some of our learners, but still this approach help us to bridge the education even in the pandemic times. So one method for me, or one best learning approach, is the online education for me. And of course, as a science teacher here in our country, as a STEM teacher, the best is one best learning approach is the problem based learning. Because when we give the problem to our learners, we can see them that they are very curious, they are very excited how to get the answers to answer those problems. And we only act as facilitator, as a guide, and when we are seeing them enjoying finding the solutions for those problems, And when there are something wrong in what they are doing, we act as a facilitator. Then we correct them. It helps a lot for us to filter the information that they are acquiring from different resources. So problem-based learning is also one of the best learning approaches that I may suggest, or one best implementation here in our country. And of course, another learning approach that I may suggest is, um, of course, the competency-based learning, because of course we all know that our courses, our subjects is full of different competencies, different objectives, and with the use of assessments, gradings, and academic performances, it helps them a lot for our learners to gain the right knowledge, and we teachers, we are helping them to provide the quality of education that they should have, and we are producing a quality of education of graduates. Those are the best learning approaches that may I suggest here in our country.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So our next question is from Ram Evelyn Perry. Good afternoon, sir. Do you think lesson study is effective in the new normal? Thank you.
Okay, lesson study. Of course, lesson study during the pandemic, in the new normal. Okay. The lesson study is actually promoting the idea that teachers constantly improve and change their style of teaching based on students. As of now, it's not effective based on the situation, because we all know that the new normal, we don't have the face to face, but we only have the limited, here in our country we only have limited face to face learning, up to 15 to 20 learners only. And lesson study is best for the traditional face-to-face classes. So for me, the lesson study is a very effective approach, or very effective trend during the traditional face-to-face classes, or the old normal, what we call the old normal.
Okay, thank you, sir. Our next question is from May Liana Noor Afifa. Suppose we have great technology and good method, but we have less motivated students or don't have any self-directed learning. What should we do then?
Okay. Our function, our main goal as a teacher, as an educator, is to get the interest of our learners to study in order to educate them. With or without technology, we should, teachers are the ones who encouraging our learners to have the interest in teaching. So my answer with this question is, let us help our learners to gain more motivation with or without technology. It's not the issue, or it's not the problem of having the technology. It's depends on how we use the technology to our learners. We, when we use our great technologies in teaching, and our learners saw how we can use those technologies, of course, one major factor is, wow, our teacher is great in using the technology. And that's one indicator that your learner get your interest. Meaning to say, it's not about the technology, it's how we use the technology in order to deliver the lessons or the quality of education. And when we use properly the technology, we give excitement, amusement, gamifications in those technology. Of course, our learners will be hooked with this kind of strategy. We all know that gamification as of now is really, really effective. And of course, the reward system, they will love it. So it's not about the technology, it's about how we use the technology. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So another question from Mary Juliet. Do you think self-directed learning is possible when you study nursing and doctor's degree?
Okay, self-directed learning is not appropriate for studying nursing and doctor's degree. There's a program, especially for the different college schools. There are some curriculum which are implemented in this kind of courses, especially in nursing and doctor. So again, the self-directed learning is not appropriate for nursing and doctor's degree, but I suggest for some online courses, online open courses, or schools who are offering, or education institutions who are offering this online learning in connection with nursing and doctor's degree. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And this is our last question from Sir Rambanch. What is your take on fully enhancing the digitization of learning system approaches in the Philippines if there are strong hindrances like limited digital infrastructure? Infrastructure.
Infrastructures.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
thank you. All right. So that's the one of the barriers in how we give quality education to our learners. Actually, in fact, many of our learners don't have their mobile phones or any gadgets, or they don't have, although they have the gadgets in learning, but they don't have the stable internet connectivities. So the question is, why is it the our department here in the Philippines, Department of Education, is establishing a fully digitalization of learning system, even we all know that the Philippines status is not stable in terms of signals or internet connectivities. Okay, actually, the our government here in the Philippines is doing something in helping our Department of Education, our teachers, and even some educators to establish a strong internet connectivities. And one way that the Department of Education is to provide some free SIM cards for mobile phones of our learners with data connections. They are providing the data connections for our learners. But again, these are limited. So for me, it should be pursued by the Department of Education, the full digitalization of learning system here in our country, because the since the Philippines is a third world country, we here in the country, here in we educators, we teachers in this country should be also have a advancement on our system in terms of ebooks should be provided to us, the digital copy of the modules that we can provide to our learners, the way we deliver lessons, the different kinds of applications that we can use, and providing us more digitalized trainings wherein teachers are equipped with skills in delivering online education. That's why on our next academic school year, the Department of Education here in our country is trying to implement the hybrid learning, wherein since the pandemic is already cured and there's a solution for the pandemic, our Department of Education is trying to implement by next school year the limited face-to-face learning, the online education, the modular learning. So there's a mix of education implementation. And as of now, the digitalization of learning materials is one of the methods that can be offered by the Department of Education. And that is the first step for us, Filipino educators, the Philippine government, to re-establish the quality of education here in our country. Hopefully, in our country, as a third world country, we can, we can continue this kind of innovations. And of course, we can share our best practices to our to our neighborhood countries, especially with Southeast Asian nations, and hopefully in the other part of the world. Thank you.
Best wishes for that. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with with our participants. And you can say last words to our participants, sir.
All right, to all the participants and viewers in YouTube and who join our webinar, there are a lot of different trends in education. Be innovative, be original, and continue to innovate. We need you in the field of education. We need different kinds of ideas which can help the educational system, not only here in our country, but all over the world. Remember, if you have this kind of innovation, you can share that. Sharing is really important as of now. Even we cannot meet face to face, virtually, join some educational forums which can help us to create more innovations. We can adapt some practices but still recognize those authors or the proponents. Again, at the end of the day, we must give importance to the quality of education. It's not about the technology that we have or the status of our country. It's all about the quality of education that we can give to our learners. I always have this lines that I can share to all of my colleagues. The youth is the foundation of the nation. Then we should give them the quality of education. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. And we are very honored to have you, sir. Thank you. So, my dear lovely audience, thank you for your response and your positive approaches. And there's announce for our participants that we will provide our webinar certificates that we couldn't give you for the last few days. We'll post that in our Facebook official page tomorrow. So don't forget to collect all the webinar code. And once again, I'm thank you all of you for joining and sharing and participating here. And I'm inviting all of you for our next webinar in the evening session. So, dear audience, till then, everyone stay happy, stay healthy wherever you are, take care of yourself, and have a great day to all of you. I'm Nasrin signing off right now.